Hello, and welcome to the first edition of Between Two Urns. I'm your host, Arcane Armor, and I'm joined today by our guest, TheSpudHunter. Welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's very good to have you. I thought we would kick things off by asking some personal questions, rather, because not a lot of people really know who you are. I think that would be a good way to start off strong. What's your favorite part about living in New Zealand?
New Zealand? I'm from Austria.
Aren't Australia and New Zealand the same country?
No, can't you hear my my accent? I sound like Schwarzenegger.
American public education. Okay, we'll skip through that one.
This guy knew who I was.
You're obviously a Donald Trump supporter. What would you say is your favorite feature about him? Would it be his toupee or his front butt?
Cheeseburgers.
Front butt. How did you lose your virginity? For this one, you want to make sure to describe the situation in detail. So time, place, what their name was, and what he or she smelled like.
It was the fighter with Sprint and Savage Raw, and I was playing solo wizard.
Sounds about right.
About it.
In 2023, you attacked the rogue community for no good reason. Which community do you think you'll be attacking in 2024?
Without a shadow of a doubt, the Druid community. Because they are literal rats now. There's rats in the game. Literal rats.
It's true. There are rats. Do those rats look anything like?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
That's a kiwi bird from New Zealand.
Yeah, no, it's the Austrian rat.
Kiwi. All right. Here's a good one. If you did have any friends in real life, what do you think they would say your worst quality is?
I guess attentiveness. I fail to be around the ones I care about. Streaming all the time, making content when I don't really commit to enough time about the true content in my life, ones around me.
It's weird. I was going to say your face. At what age did you start manscaping? And did you carve any interesting designs in your pubis?
I did a landing strip. That was purely for sponsor reasons. And the impetus behind it was just like how professional athletes in physical sports try to get aerodynamic, say like swimmers, cyclists. I figured the less drag on my body, shifting around the gaming chair, shifting around the hand on the mouse pad, shifting around my cheeks in the chair, just less hair helps with the movement. So like every millisecond counts. If I want to flick to the left or the right of the screen, there's probably like 0.1 ms gained just from being aerodynamic. So that was the influence.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I went with kind of it'd probably be better just to show you. Wait. Yeah. Well, we got to go live here shortly, but I did want to ask, at what point do you think we should bring out Harry in the interview? He's the one that everybody really wants to see. He's kind of the main act. So when will he be coming out? Just excited for it.
I'm currently on vacation, so he's stuck in the studio. So that's why there's a beach behind me. Currently unavailable. I thought my agent told you these things.
No, I was not informed. Well, there is the issue of the fee. Obviously, we'll have to do an entire separate episode for Harry, which is fine. But the fee that you paid for this episode will not cover the episode with Harry. So you can just Venmo me like you did for this one, and we'll take care. Okay,
he's low effort. He only needs cashews or salted peanuts, so should be able to sort it out.
Okay. Last but not least, I just need to grab your phone number and well, I guess I have that for Venmo, but your address rather. And the reason for that is I want to send you my Dark and Darker mug so that you can take it down the street. I'd really love to get Pestily's autograph. If you could do that for me, that'd be great. So, little backstory here for the audience. I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but Spuddy was the OG. A lot of you guys will know this, but he was one of the OGs, probably one of the larger streamers that really promoted the hell out of the game in the playtest days. Like, I would say it's not an overstatement to say you kind of kept that hype train going in between, especially playtest 2, playtest 3. Even going into 4, you had some of the most comprehensive and, of course, entertaining videos that existed in the community. It was well before anybody even knew who Jay was. Repose, I think, was maybe starting to make a name for himself, but you definitely fall into the true OG category. And when I got the itch to start doing something, and this channel is my first foray into YouTube or any kind of content creation at all, I actually sent you a message and had you do a quick review of my video, and you didn't tell me that it sucked. So that kept the light burning long enough for me to start doing player profiles. So a public thank you for that, sir. Thank you for not pooping in my Cheerios. Appreciate it.
No, you're cool, man. Like, it's very clear you have passion for what you do, and that carries. That's 50% of the action when it comes to like any kind of like creativity, is having a passion and drive, and then everything else follows through, you know?
Yeah.
Like yeah, like you just get the more you do what you're passionate about, the better you get over time. So yeah, no, I could clearly see you're passionate about like media and entertainment and presenting it in a interesting format, you know? And when it comes to like the stuff you said before about like being an OG of like Dark and Darker and all the videos and stuff during the hiatus of the game, that was my way of like keeping my own sanity, because I was salivating for the game just as much as anyone else. And a lot of like content creators, like, you know, the big cheeses, because remember in the playtests, it was going to be the next big thing. And then the game was hampered by all sorts of issues, and it sort of, I guess, pull the rug underneath the developers' feet, right?
Right.
And it sort of slowed down that hype train. So I thought, well, I know these guys are sort of coming out with something around the corner, and I know they don't have a PR team. So I thought, why not I just make some funny shit for them? But like, you know, I didn't reach out to them or anything. I just thought I'll in the back of my mind, I thought I'll just hijack like being their PR guy for a bit, their hype man. So I went full Stilgar from June, going, they're the listener game. And I just kept making like silly memes and stuff, you know, just the hold the line thing, not to pull my own chain and say, oh, I came up with that, bro. But like, that was like a bit of a slogan on my stream. Just an in-house joke from like when I used to carry on about talking about Gladiator and stuff and some of my favorite scenes from films, and a lot of old like
Braveheart. Yeah.
Like Braveheart, and just a lot of medieval films have like a quote in it where the army's waiting for the enemy army to march on them, and they're like, hold the line. So during the early days of that, I just kept making memes about everyone must hold the line, all that kind of crap.
Mhm.
So it was funny to me when more of the general public embraced the game. And I had some vocal criticisms about balance around ambush, one-tap rogues and stuff out of invisibility. I remember some of the people of the community write comments and, pinging me on the Discord saying, clearly you're not someone who would hold the line. I was like, you realize I coined that? It's just like, but I didn't write that in response to him. It's just like, it's funny how quick things move on. You know what I mean? Because like after that playtest stage, there was that big barrage of the early access players that really, there's like a knowledge gap between them of like what the playtests were and now,
Right.
that embrace the game. So it is funny to sort of think how much time has flown because like you're making me feel old saying, yeah, like, January 2023, it's just like, God, man, it really has flown by.
Yeah. Yeah. That honeymoon phase. Well, maybe that's not the true honeymoon phase. I don't even know what you would call it. Just the crack fiend phase where that day that you're talking about, I remember like as clear as any day in the last 5 years of my life when they said they were going to do the playtest. I think it was like April 14th, maybe it was April 18th. They said it was going to come out and all the legal issues sprung up. And you had all of these doomers saying there's no shot, it's never coming out. And everyone's in the Discord and you've got your stream. I've got your stream up on one screen. I've got Jay's stream up on another screen. And like you're just blasting, you're going 1, 2, 3, and then everybody floods. And the speed at which the screen scrolled was so absolutely insane. That like 10 hour. I got up at 4 a.m. that morning. That's all I remember. And then it didn't happen for at least like 8 hours. I want to say it was around noon that they finally said, Grayson came out and said, okay, go torrent this. But the amount of hype leading up to that was like nothing I had ever been around. Have you ever seen anything like that? I know you've been around the gaming scene for a while, done a lot of arena FPS.
Nah, nothing like that. Nothing. It was pretty wild. And you know what? It made, I was just saying like talking about January last year is making me feel old and crusty. What made me feel old and crusty is I was never like a wares kind of guy, whether you believe it or not, right? Like I wasn't into that. I was always like, I'll support whatever I'm into.
That is to our viewers, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so
the whereas days. It's like Pirate Bay,
to Zoomers, yeah, Pirate Bay, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
I was always very like, if I'm passionate about a game or a movie, I'll buy it, and I just didn't like. I think when I was younger, a lot of people's issue was just mass consuming lots of things. It was just like, just research what you want to buy and then buy it. That was kind of me. But I did, I was aware of what torrenting is and all that, right? But when it came to the reason why I was aware, right, was because being in Australia, I grew up with 56K for so long. Like you Americans and Europeans, you had decent internet in the 2000s. It wasn't until like 2000 and I reckon I was on 1.5 at 2006, and then I didn't get off that until 2018, 2019 is when we got NBN where I live. And like during the 2000s, if I was to download an update for a game or a mod, I would have to use a torrent. So I wasn't like pirating stuff. I was using torrenting in a legitimate way, which is just, it's just another form of downloading something, right?
Yeah, sure.
So to me, torrenting, like
no stigma attached to it.
Yeah, no stigma. I used to torrent stuff all the time. So when the developers were like, "Oh, you got to download the game on torrent because of the game got taken off of Steam due to a legal dispute," a lot of Zoomers, anyone I guess below the age of 25, was like, "Oh my god, is the FBI going to abseil through my roof?" And it's just like, it's just another form of downloading something. It just happens to be that 90% of it is used for piracy, unfortunately, because it's such a good method for that. So that, pretty funny that night, because it was just trying to explain to people like the whole night how to use torrents. And then it was just like this weird feeling. It's like some people are making out as if you're teaching people how to, like, steal something from a museum or some shit, it's just
right,
like, no, it's just like,
right.
yeah, you know what I mean? So it's just like, no, like, it's just another method of downloading. But yeah, that was pretty wild that night. Like, I was enjoying the hype around it, because there's a little bit of entertainer DNA in me. I like just being a clown, and it was just so fun to have like a night where you get those nights every now and then. Like, it doesn't matter what. Here's the deal, right? Going on a bit of a tangent. It doesn't matter what size of a content creator you are, like online. Like, if you're a gamer streamer dude and you've got like an average of 100 viewers, or you get an average of 500 or 2,000, or you're like someone like Shroud who has like 20,000 concurrent viewers, every single one of those people, most of their year is just going like any regular job or gig. It's just going through the motions, and you have your average nights here and there, and you're doing your thing. And then there'll be this odd night that's just a biblical event, because there's like an energy around something. There's a launch of a game. There's a launch of this, or there's a big update. And that night, the launch of I think it was Playtest 5, was it? Yeah, Playtest 5.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that was because people truly thought the game's done. Like, done. There's no way we'll ever, because it'll be in a dispute for years to come. There's no way we're ever getting our hands on it again. And then, they went the torrent way, and then the independent launcher, and everyone knows that history. And yeah, it just created this, like, wait a minute, everyone just, like, there's this big energy. It was like a flash mob dance, kind of that, you know what I mean? Of just like people, like, it just. So I went hard with all the theatrics, movie quotes, and hyping people up and doing little bits and everything. And it was just like, I think it was like 10 hours of improv, because everyone was just sitting there. So I did like and then I ended up doing a 24-hour stream when the game finally went live. But it was like 10 hours leading into it, and it didn't feel like 10 hours. It genuinely felt like an hour. Like, it was insane.
It went so fast. Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a fun bit of history.
Indeed. How do you feel like the game has evolved since then, for better or worse? If we kind of walk through the timeline and try to pick out, I mean, a lot has happened. What just drives me nuts right now is I'll see these posts. Of course, they're on Reddit, your average Redditor, complaining that they haven't done anything in the last year. And I feel like it is probably valuable every now and then just to kind of remind ourselves of all these major milestones that they've hit, because I do feel like they've accomplished a lot. Some things really great, some things not so great. And we're all very, very aware of the seesaw nature of their updates that they push. And I think they're getting a little bit better at that. But, if we go back and rewind to that Playtest 5 and kind of walk through time, what, at least in your mind, were some of those really major milestones or events, for good or for bad? Like, once EA hit, I think Bard came out. Was Bard out in Playtest 5, or was that EA? It had to be Playtest 5, right? Because Bard was.
I think it's Playtest 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it came out weak, I think, and then OP.
Really, yep.
Yeah, and then really OP in the next major tweak of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But things like that. So what are some of the other things, like, as the game has evolved, that really stand out for you?
Thing is, like you said, there's been lots. So it's hard to sort of pinpoint one. I think, well, not to dance around the question, I'll say one of the major ones would be for better or worse, the normals and high roller split, which I think was actually more in the playtest, not in early access. But the problem with that is it's splitting up the player base, and there's like 2 games in one when they have to design and balance things. But it did help split like the turbo nerd sweats from people that just, they come home from their job and they just want to play for like half an hour and have a good time. And normals allows that experience.
Does. Yep.
So, because I don't think they'd retain people I think it's been rumored that most people actually play normals, which I think says a lot. So how they go forward with the game, I don't know. But I don't think the game would retain as many players if it was just everyone's got to rush to the best gear and then PvP stomp, class, hard counter, gear counter. But yeah, I'd say it's that. And if they keep multi-classing, the next milestone will be them adding Druid. So then I can put Entangle on my Wizard. So, which is not going to be busted at all.
Have you got around to playing with the Druid class on the test server at all?
No, just because I have taken a week break from streaming live and I've been editing like crazy. I think I've only streamed once this week or twice. Okay. And it's just sort of been like in and out the game, and I haven't downloaded the test server. Most people are playing on the American servers, and it's really laggy for me as an Australian. So it's kind of like I'm not that invested in doing the test server. So what I'll do is I'll just look at the content people put on Reddit or live stream, and I was like, oh yeah, I see. I've already watched all the footage of like people, working out how to get the rat through the door hole, the windows in the door.
Soapy's getting pretty good at it.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think they're the normals and high roller thing was a major shift. I think here you go. I'll say there's no it's a 50-50 feeling on this one. They changed a lot of people that have just touched the game since early access. They wouldn't remember the playtest healing system where the bandages didn't have a movement speed penalty, and the health pots could be stacked. So if I draw, I drank a white one, a green potion, or a blue potion, health potion. Right. All three healing benefits would stack on top of each other and heal at the same time.
Right.
That changed the gameplay a lot, and I understand why they did it. So I don't rage and be like, oh my god, the game was better back in my day or whatever. But it helped. I think it was I have a controversial view on it. I do think it was a form of skill expression, because let's say you're a solo player or even another squad, you would hear people in another room. You could pre-pot into a fight and then push them. And it's like it's an action of like, you're preparing for a fight, go for it. And when players were being pushed and you could see people coming in a room, a lot of people never thought, oh, heal before a fight and engage. Because you didn't have all these crazy penalties, switching and stuff. It'd be pretty quick to like switch a potion, heal, and then you have the benefits, right? Obviously, if you get someone off guard real quick, it's hard for them to do that. But I felt like it was a form of sustain. And if you look at games like Apex Legends, not that you want to turn Dark and Dark into Apex Legends, that's why I understand they changed it, right? But if you look at games like Apex Legends, you'll see a lot of players, they're rotating. Oh, quick, doing the bat, sustain. Right. You're sustaining in fights. So It's like a form of skill expression, because you can do all this TTK, all this damage to each other, but you're doing like dodges, you're sliding over here, you're behind that, right, bandage. Right. This game, what they did with it, they removed that. So now you drink one potion, that is the effect you get. When you do a bandage, you're slow as fuck. Right. I'll try not to swear because of all the YouTube algorithm stuff, but you're slow as, right? And that fundamentally changed the game. It is so much different now because of that system. So for me, I used to 1v3 all the time because of that system. Now it's just like people see you, they run at you, and you exchange damage, and it's based on whatever gear you have, and that is the game.
Yep.
It's very rare you can pop off heals and potions and stuff. It happens still, but it's not like it used to be. So I feel, to an extent, for sweaties, I think it was a negative change. For the average player that just really doesn't engage with the game like that, like people engage some other games like Apex Legends and stuff, it just meant it was easier for them to play the game. But I think on a subconscious level, they don't really get that you've just got less tools to work with, and it actually informs more of the players to focus on just gear stomping each other. Like you can't. Yep. It doesn't just come down to like, oh no, you outmaneuvered them, you out-healed them, you out-positioned them. It's, oh, that guy had the Golden Dragon dildo and you had pocket fluff, in high roller. That's why I say a lot of people like normals, because you're not experiencing these side effects of game design, like the gear expression. Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah,
I understand why they did it. So I don't hate it. Just want everyone to know in your podcast, because the people will be like, oh, he clearly he wants that system back. I get why they changed it. So like I don't get vocal about it because I understand why they changed it. But at the same time, I don't like it. So it just is what it is.
So to clarify, when you say that you feel like that had more skill expression, obviously the act of punching your utility bar to get a potion out, there's not a lot of skill in that. Just I think I know what you mean by this, is that the number of actions that you take. I feel like this is a really unique game in that it feels to me like a really, really, really in some cases, fast-paced, turn-based RPG, right? Like there are certain actions when I get into an engagement now, maybe it's just because I have way too many hours in, but it's like, what action am I going to take first? And if you take the wrong action first, you will get penalized for that. So you notice a lot of people that are one-trick ponies, like if they just know how to do this one thing, if they can't do that one thing, they're going to die. And then they're going to go on Reddit and they're going to bitch about it. But one of the things that I feel like I think you're saying with that healing meta was that because of the way that system worked, you had to make more skillful decisions or more calculated, informed decisions about how many different potions you were going to be able to get off and when. And then I guess there would be some level of mechanical skill involved in making sure that, you're selecting.
I think the biggest issue was, I think the biggest issue was, and I'm not putting this into account because I basically just play solo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these days I play solo in the duo queue, so I'm 1v2ing all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've played a couple trio matches with some friends, and that was it. Like not too many. But I do watch trio streamers. I watch Jay, or watch Repose, or watch Kenobi, many more. And I do understand the metas in that mode. I do get that it's a very different game flow, because just like buff ball meta, like the whole game is about buff ball meta. And the healing stacking with buff ball was insane for a lot of people. And they didn't have information that people were like, if I drunk 3 potions and then I've got a cleric and a wizard buffing me and I'm a fighter, the person fighting me thinks, oh, he's got 100 HP. No, he's got like 250. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that was why I think it got nerfed and removed. Not nerfed, like they just changed the system, because just you didn't know whether you were getting into that or not. In solos, you really never experienced that. Like, so it did feel like a skill expression thing to me. So that's why I think there'll be people watching this going, what is he high? Like, what does he mean as a skill expression? But the buff ball thing really changes the dynamic. And yeah. So full stop. I had nothing else to add.
Fair enough. Well, the community over the last year has definitely changed from those early days that we were talking about. It felt like, Doomers aside, like everyone, for the most part, even the Doomers secretly wanted, for the most part, unless they were Nexon shills, they wanted the game to release. They wanted to see the game succeed. That sentiment has certainly changed quite a bit over the last, I would say, especially 6 months. There's been a lot of controversy. Multiclassing certainly has sparked a lot. In your experience around the gaming scene and being a part of the Cycle communities and Quake Arena and all these different communities that you've been tapped into, how would you compare our dear community to the rest? Is there any significant differences that stand out?
Yeah,
and also, who are you voting for?
I think I understand the question. It's like, it's what's the zeitgeist like around the community? What's the energy like? The vibe? I think most gaming communities are the same. People aren't that different, but there's like certain games and genres, they attract different personalities more than others. But overall, people are the same, right? for instance, right, if we had, as of today, as we're talking about this, like this game, and where are we? We're May now, May the 2nd, at least for me, in 2024. There's a controversy in the Tarkov community, right? Escape from Tarkov. Like, there's been a bit of unsavory behavior from the game developers regarding players that, that played towards players that paid for a special edition, Edge of Darkness. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, so just to people that have no idea what's going on, basically some scammy behavior, right?
Right.
And if that happened with Dark and Darker, like a similar thing with like the Founders Pack or whatever, the Founders Edition, the same response would happen. Like, it wouldn't be like, oh, no, whatever. People kind of react the same in different communities about all these kind of things, especially when like money's involved, you know? Yeah. So I would say regarding Dark and Darker, I don't know, man. Like Quake Champions was a very niche community around Quake, and there was different shards of the Quake community that were among it. Some of the old school Quake players hated the new Quake because it was like a hero shooter version of Quake. Quake Champions is. And you'd have like elitists that would be like, oh no, these guys are soft. They're, that's not real. That's not a real game, blah, blah, blah. And then you'd have new people that were embracing Quake for the first time because this new version of the game back in 2017 introduced them to it. Anyway, I found that the behavior and the psychology is the same as like that. Like it really isn't that much different. It's how many people there are. And if the game's super popular, right, you get more casual people. And not to sound toxic, because it was like when I say casual people, it'll make me sound like I'm just calling everyone glue sniffers, because I don't think I'm that above people. Like, I'm pathetic just as much as anyone else, right? But like, let's put it this way. If this game has 10,000 players, right, average, it's basically like hardcores and people that understand the game, and then a bunch of people that may not be able to articulate themselves or understand the game inside and out, but they experience the game and they understand the community and they talk about it. But once you go to the big time, like if you're like Escape from Tarkov levels of size, or League of Legends or Counter-Strike, you get lots of people that are just, simple. And with that comes, simple demands. I mean, I remember in Cycle Frontier, when it first came out, there was constant Reddit threads talking about giving solo players jetpacks to verse squads. And I was just like, do you understand what you're asking for here? You know what I mean? So that was a massive tangent. I was losing myself a bit there, but I think I think everyone would get what I mean by that. You know what I mean? So I think Dark and Dark is in the niche category right now because it's sort of had the rug pulled from under it, and everyone that's around the game right now, it's the hardcores, Mm-hmm. So I don't think we experienced a little bit of that energy around the community when early access came out and there was hype around the game, and then the playtest. But right now it's in that weird place of, okay, it's still trying to find its identity because it's a live service, and they've changed a lot about it fundamentally.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, like, I love the game and there's still so much fun to be had in it, and it's still an exciting experience, but there's so much whack game design in it. Like, it does feel like a house of cards, and I do feel like it's on like it's shaking at the moment. It's not very stable. And I can tell just from like rumors behind the scenes and just what I see from the behavior of the developers that I think they're going to spend the next couple months sort of breaking the game a bit, experimenting with things, and then fundamentally changing a lot of balance and the way the class systems work. Mm-hmm. There's potential that we won't even recognize the game in like 3 months' time, I think. And that's not hopium or copium, because like they're hiring staff right now. and they're onboarding them, and that takes months. That's not something like
Right.
you remember what I talked about, like casual people in game communities. A lot of like, if we had like 100,000 people averaging in the game right now, there'd be threads about why don't they just buy more staff? And it's like it takes time. Like it doesn't like you don't just hire 10 dudes or 20 or 100 dudes and immediately there's just like content or good game design happening. Like it takes a while to onboard them. And then after some months, things start happening and there's a flow state. So I think they're going to start getting the flow state. They just hired a marketing guy. Some of you know who that is.
Yeah.
They've just hired a bunch of game designers, and I think they've got some part-time asset producers too. People that work overseas that will So it's all starting to happen, but we're not going to see the benefits of that for some time yet. And I think the game's going to go in like a bit of a stasis where it's like it's just going to average about 6 to 10K people. That sounds like to like just average gamers, that sounds like a lot, but to game developers and to content creators, that's very small and niche because there's no audience and there's no when it comes to attrition, you lose players. It's very rare you get many more new ones. You know, like it's hard to keep that number up. If that makes sense? Yeah. So I think everything's gearing towards an Epic release, basically.
That's
big
what
time.
I was going to say. Yeah. So do you have any hopes for a bump when it goes on the Epic store?
I do. I do think it won't be as big as a Steam bump.
No,
you know, because Epic, there's so many games that release on Epic and it's like tumbleweed. But there's still a lot of people that won't download the launch. And it doesn't make sense to me because people have no issue with downloading a game from a Russian game developer. Nothing wrong with Russians. I'm just saying, like, it boggles my mind. Like the difference between trusting your computer with downloading something from Russia versus South Korea. I don't understand. Right. But like no one has an issue downloading and buying a game from Russia, right? Whether it goes through UK or not, different story. But yeah, so it for whatever reason, there's still a lot of sentiment like, no, I'm not going to, I won't buy the launcher. You know, I'm not going to buy the game through their launcher, rather than Steam or Epic. But that doesn't bode well for me because a lot of people have no issue getting the game Escape from Tarkov on an independent launcher. That's not on Steam, and it has like a bajillion players. Like it's insane how many people play that game during a wipe. Yeah, I do think it'll have a bump, but to answer your question, they need to have the game ready. And I think they know this. I've bitched to Terrence a bunch of times about it. I've said it very loudly on like my live streams and some of my videos. They have to get it ready because Cycle Frontier is perfect data for them. Like they did not have that game ready for a lot of things in its launch, and it suffered greatly for it. Mm-hmm. And they just play catch up, and they had to rush the early access of this game, and you can see the similar patterns whether it's dealing with RMT, dealing with cheaters, dealing with a very noisy community that constantly wants new content, because that's unfortunately due to like all the battle royales that have billions of dollars and 1,000 staff behind them. They've created this machine now that people expect from every multiplayer game, where it's like every 3 months there needs to be a biblical update, and it has to have pink bunny ears and a golden dragon dildo, or I'm out. Like that's literally the energy from people all the fucking time now. So, I think it seems like they're preparing for more of that kind of energy, and I hope that's the truth because they need. I don't expect them to have as much update as a game like Apex Legends, but a decent game flow, like game state. The game's game state isn't very good. Like I think there's fun to be had in the game, but because they were rushed because of the legal case they were in, the dispute, the game had to come out. Like that's public knowledge. Like they had to get it out.
Yeah.
And they suffered for it. But the game hasn't tanked. Like there's still so much potential in the game. And I hate the potential word because everything has potential, but it truly does. Out of all the games that are like a live service early access, this game has the most potential. And it's just got to like SDF and Terrence have to work out what they want to do with this game. It does feel like they're still like scratching their head, like they're kind of on the precipice of something, but they're not there. And multiclassing is a good example of it because that breaks class identity. No one can argue that, yeah, there's some fun to be had with it, but there's lots of, it does make a mockery of like classes, you know. That's probably another question you've got coming up. So I'll stop yapping.
We'll definitely talk about multi-classing, but I have hope there. So there's, I think one of the better constructive criticisms that they are aware of, but I think it hopefully will be resolved with guys like Soma going on board and maybe Odin. The one of the bigger criticisms has just been the communication. And for me, I have to kind of separate myself because I feel like personally, Iron Mace does a fantastic job of being extremely transparent. They get on podcasts, Terrence and SDF they will be almost overly transparent with the audience about the state of things. But thinking about it a little bit more, and I may have heard this on one of your streams, or maybe it was one of several others as well. The issue is not that they're not coming out and talking to us. It's that the us in that equation is the diehards, and that we weren't seeing a lot of this stuff communicated in the launcher. We weren't seeing this on the website. We weren't seeing it in the game front and center, so that the average person is going out there and complaining on Reddit and saying, what about all this stuff? These are all problems. And then you have half of us homers like me answering these Reddit posts like freaking community managers like, oh, did you see this recent podcast where Terrence said that they're aware of this issue? And it's like that I feel like has happened over and over again. And if they can iron some of those wrinkles out over the coming months, it's going to go a long way to buy them some goodwill. Just like
it sounds cooked to say this, but like BSG has, like Battlestate Games from Tarkov has better communication. I hate saying that. But like they have, like you said it, like they need something in the launch. Like they've got a little news thing, but they're not really using it. It's just like when there's an update, it's just for the update. Like, yeah, there's an update coming out, but you already know that because you got to force the game to update. But I think, it's the external. I think once they get the game going, when it's like public, they do need like a community manager, which obviously they're getting on board now. But it's an awkward one, dude, because like they do communicate, I think, relatively well enough. It's the problem that I think they bounce around what they communicate and then do, and that the diehards lose their crap. Like, all right, for instance, we're going to test multiclassing on the test server, and it's on for like 2 days, 3 days max, I think. And then it's just immediately in the live service.
Yeah.
And people are under the impression that that's going to be tested for a while before it goes live. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then it's like, we knew that was going to happen, but not on that level. So I don't know. I think the communications, like,
well, to be fair, let me push back a little bit on that. Do you feel like it's been buggy?
What, multiclassing?
Yeah.
Not that it's buggy. It's more like
not unbalanced. So that's the thing where I feel like if this kind of goes back to Terrence and SDF came out and said, yes, we know this is going to break the game, right? And then later SDF came out and said, hey, I've got plans for this, and we're going to have a more deterministic, restrained version of multi-classing coming up. But the audience, the scope of people that actually reached is really, really low overall, right? And I think people have really short-term memories. They need to be reminded of these things. And then you can make the argument that like, hey, they shouldn't be doing this in the first place. This should have stayed on test until they figured out the balance issues and the class identity issues. Sure, that's a legit argument, but my perspective was get multi-classing out there on test, and if there are technical issues, like things are just not buggy and not working, then yeah, don't go live. But if you're SDF and you're telling everybody, we know this is going to break the game, we're going to do it anyway because we need massive amounts of data, not just the small amount that we're going to get from the test server, then cool, I'm all for it. But I'm probably in the 1% or 5% audience that only plays this game, that does content for this game and reads everything and watches everything around this game. So I forget and just constantly overlook the fact that not everyone else is absorbing the same information as I am, right?
Well, I think you kind of answered the question in what you said. Like, you're one of the hardcores. Most people aren't going through the information that's out there like you would or I would, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to feel surprised. Now, this is going to be a bit of a tangent from what you're saying, but essentially, it's kind of connected to a bigger issue, right? So you said it yourself, they're not going to get the data they need off of the test server.
Mm-hmm.
One, they kind of, for lack of better expression, cucked themselves a bit by locking it into the Founders Edition. Isn't that right? Like, the only way to access I might be wrong, but the only way to access it is buying the special edition, right?
As far as I know. And you can upgrade. Yeah. I think if you bought the original and you want to get access to test, I think you can go and pay the $15 difference to get test. But I think what you're going to say is don't do that. Just give it for free.
No. I was going to say most people won't do that, right? Because most people aren't going to go their way to be a free quality assurance staff member and play because most of the time on the test servers of any game, they're an inferior experience to the actual game, right? Because it's buggy or whatever the hell's going on. And most people just do it to be nosy. They want to bust a meta. Sure. Like, what's the new update? So they're not really there to help the devs. They're there to just be a bit snoopy and be like, what can I break in the game? And then it goes live. So data on the test servers are always a bit iffy like that. That's why it's always good to have like a bit of a round table of, say, like 20 or 10 dudes that are like the most dedicated players you have, that are skill-based, understand the game, and they're reasonable with their views of things, and they take both sides of the fence into consideration, you know? Mm-hmm. And those people give good data testing things, but the issue is how much data can you get from them? Are they going to test like 8 hours a day, 2 weeks straight for you? You know, like, those people might as well be paid at this point.
Right.
So,
and are they going to give their feedback? And does Iron Mace have a process or a useful system for capturing that feedback and implementing it? That was one of the other questions that I had. It's like, okay, I do actually want to give test server feedback. Where do I go? There's nothing in the game, unless I missed it, that tells me where to give feedback. And I have to go hunting on the Discord to find it. And eventually I did find the channel in the Discord, but that's something that I feel like should be right there in the interface, where I can just hit escape and go report a bug, give feedback right there.
So it's a 2-part answer to what you've said, which I think answers your own question. But essentially, you've got the issue of information, like you said. So how much useful information they're getting from it? Who's it going to? Where's it going to? Are the people going to go out of their way? Most people don't. I would say at best, most useful information they're going to get is probably watching like a stream of Jay experiment with the game for like 12 hours on the test server. True. And they're probably doing that, you know, but well, what about the rest of it? There's a lot of wasted data out there. So essentially you've got that, right? And now you can't get more people into the test server. It has to go live so they get real data. That's where they're getting the real data. But the thing is, I firmly believe this. When they're truly live with the game and it's not early access, when they release the game and they try and really push it to the public again, they can't experiment like they do, because players get like whiplash and they get thrown around with like 1 minute I can play the wizard solo, the next minute they've cut his nuts off, and it's just like that's removing the fun zone for a lot of people. Yeah. And at the end of the day, the average person, they're not here, whether it's labeled early access. Every game is early access now, even AAA studio games. So like, people are not there to be an unpaid quality assurance staff member. They're there to have fun. And if they're not having fun, they go have fun somewhere else. So my issue with this whole like testing on the live server is, all right, fine, we can do it now, although I still don't agree with it, right? Because it bleeds out the player base and they find new homes. It's hard to bring people back. It really is. Like, there'll be wipes and it will bring people back, word of mouth with streamers and this, that, and the other. But it's still hard to keep people, get them re-engaged once you lose them. So I think once they're truly live, they have to work out, like, they have to do a new version Like it's the non-early access test server. You know, I don't think people are going to feel scammed like the BSG situation. It's a different kettle of fish. But I think when they go live, they have to have a new test server that's like, hey, this is the released test server. You know, so the founders guys aren't being like, you know, well, we wanted to be the exclusive test. It's like they're not getting any real data with this system that they've gone with. So when they go live, they can't experiment like they do now because they'll just lose everyone again. They won't, you know, that 100,000 people that were just fiending over the game. Yes, it was new game hype, but they could have retained so many more of those players. I reckon 30 to 40% of that, if it was like the game had such a good ecosystem going, like the ideal utopia where it's like things are tested and fleshed out before it goes live. There's a fundamentally well-balanced foundation to the game. Stuff that's not there because it's just an early access mess. Still fun, but a mess.
Right.
When they go live, when they truly release this game, they just can't whiplash the community because people, just the average gamer, like I keep saying, the casual dudes, which make the money and keep games going for years to come, they just won't hack it. They'll just be like, fuck this.
Agreed.
Dude, I love the game, and there's been lots of moments in the last month of multiclassing where I've just like, I've broken a vase, fisted my fucking monitor and just walked out the room, you know? And I was like, fuck this. So that's someone who's passionate about the game, you know?
Yeah, it definitely feels like if you are not multi-classing right now, you're getting raked over the coals. And having started late, my original goal was to get both my cleric and my wizard, actually all three, and my fighter to well above 30 before multi-classing got released. And I just ended up playing my cleric way too much, got my wizard there. So I started my fighter from level 1, after everybody else was 2.5 weeks ahead. And holy hell, you feel it when you hit level 15. Because I'll tell you, man, like between levels 1 and 15, I feel like they're really gating those lobbies a lot, at least on the NA servers. I ran into no one that was sweating whatsoever. And you can't play high roller until 20 now, right? So in norms, you have your fair share of people that are just there to just flat out PvP and destroy everyone all the time. I didn't see any of those people until I hit 15. And then from 15 to 20 felt a little different. Once I hit 20, even just staying in norms, it was a whole different ball game. And you notice right away, if you're not multi-classing, you're dead. Like you are getting absolutely wrecked.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's not just skill diff, it is capability diff that you're dealing with at that point.
Yeah.
And
see, in high roller, you have the gear diffing.
Yeah.
So you can kind of like out gear some people that have some crazy, you know, multi-class builds or whatever.
Right.
So in normals, it truly, like the gears out of the equation is now who's grinded and got the most optimized meta skill and perk selection. You know, so it's like there's two different metas in two different modes.
It is a godsend for me because I have been a struggling solo cleric. Well, I mean, I play duos and trios for sure, but I would say if I had to look at my game time spent, it would probably be over 50% solo. And trying to play cleric solo has been a kick in the nuts. Like I think it might even one up the wizard in certain points throughout the game's history. Now, there are definitely points where wizard takes the cake for the worst, but overall, I definitely think cleric gives wizard a run for its money for worst class to play solo. But since
100%.
multi-classing, holy hell, it's made it an absolute blast just getting one or two little things like weapon mastery, so I can hold a crystal ball and a weapon. That changes the game for me to be able to actually fight rogues and bards and classes that would normally just wait for me to switch from my weapons to my book. And that action or that regular interaction takes so long that I would be dead before that process could take place. Right. So I had multiple people I've run into in the Troubadour chat. Like this guy beat me in a fight, and I actually had pulverizing prayer at the time. And he came in and he was like, dude, was that you? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I was just waiting for you to take out your book so I could get to you and kill you. And it's just like, there it is. Like that's it.
So just one little thing for the cleric and getting weapon mastery, being able to hold a crystal ball and a weapon has completely changed the game for me. I didn't need to have any crazy optimized build. That's literally the only other perk that is the only perk that's a non-cleric perk that I'm running. And then everything else is pretty much base, except I get wizard, fireball, and ice bolt, which gives me range. So it solves for like two of the major issues with cleric and makes it just a ton of fun to play. But I know I'm probably in the minority in that pretty much everyone else I see is meta slaving. They're getting these crazy barbarian fighter hybrid builds together and just curb stomping everyone everywhere.
It's a sort of like bit of a yin yang situation with multi-classing, because say like wizard and cleric can have some more interesting abilities and perks and utility playing the game, but then the other guys that they're already struggling against also get buffed out the wazoo with stupid shit like sprint and savage roar at the same time, where you just can't even sustain a fight. Like they just chase you down or run straight into you immediately at Mark 5. So like I've been enjoying, to add to what you're saying, I guess we'll just say what we're enjoying with multi-class and then the negatives like you have. For wizard, like I've multi-classed a few things. I enjoyed messing around with warlock, I enjoyed messing around with rogue, but I multi-classed the wizard, and I found for solo wizard, multi-classing kind of sucks because you actually need a whole bunch of the base perks and ability. Like you've always got the spell memory, right? So you've lost a skill, so you've only got one skill to pick from. And then the perks, you need the wizard perks. Like you can't really pick other perks, otherwise you're losing a lot of damage or like spell casting speed. So I felt like in my perk selection, I have one perk to sacrifice. All right. And I've got the 10% knowledge, 10% spell casting speed, and then what was the third one? Third one's slipping me, but it's another one that's giving me some damage, right?
Fire mastery,
and maybe I don't know why it's slipping me. I'm having a moment, but the fourth one is the one I thought, well, I can. Oh no, ice mastery. I remembered now. Ice mastery, and there's a huge reason for it, because as a solo wizard, when people push you, that 0.5 seconds like freezing, it really stops their momentum, and you can just sort of like, if you've got your spell casting speed up, that's why I've got the build is spell casting. Because if you get the spell casting speed up as ice bolt 0.5, and in that 0.5 after, I've casted another ice bolt. Freeze, and you can get off like 3 hits before they get close to you, and that's huge, especially when everyone's got magic resistance and you're doing about 5 damage per hit. Right. It's actually huge.
Iron will now, right?
Yeah. So like, ice mastery is my third, and I feel like I can't change it. Like I can't get rid of it. I've done it every time I've experimented. I can't get rid of it. But the fourth one was the expendable one, and I picked double jump. So I'm slowed down, but the thing is, people were chasing me down anyway. I know you're laughing, but like, it's funny how you execute it. What you got to do is you gravitate towards these positions in maps like Ice Map, which have lots of verticality, and that's why the double jump's huge. So a Goblin Caves is probably dog shit and useless, but in the Ice Map, the double jump is massive because there's lots of spots that you can get on, even if it's just like a small ice pillar, you can double jump on top of it and you gravitate towards them. So you get players that come towards you, double jump, and then you ice bolt, magic missile, fireball, and you're just. You see what I mean? So because you can't, I just developed a play style because everyone's got Mark 5 speed at the press of a button, and you can't outrun anyone, even with like high speed builds. I was spending 20k gold just getting like the best high speed movement crap for like wizard, and I still got run down, and it'd get really frustrating because it's like I'm spending all this time buying the best kits ever just for people with shit gear to just run me down. So double jump's been huge for that, but at the same time, I feel guilty because of the lack of class identity. I've done so many kills where people just didn't expect. Like, they're like, oh, he's double jumped onto something I can't get on top of. Oh, crap. And now I just fireball them 3 times as they came towards me, and then they got to run and they're dead. But they had no information for that. And that's the problem with multi-classing. You have no information. Good games with good game design, everything gives you information. You have information. I don't expect them to turn this into Apex Legends. I'm using it as an example because that game has great information. I don't want them to turn to Apex Legends because obviously it's a different game and it's a battle royale. But that game, like when you're damaging people, you're being told they have purple armor, right? because it's purple icons that are popping up.
Sure.
So you now know that person, they don't have gray armor. They can take 3 times as damage as someone that doesn't have purple armor.
Right.
So that's information. When someone's popping a shield and they're like in cover, they've got all these weird effects coming around them, and you can see it's a shield.
And you
now
can
we've
hear
got
it.
animation.
Yeah, you can hear the battery, yeah.
So we've got animations for bandages. People are drinking potions. You get all that. Like there's information there, but there's still like so much information with all sorts of shit that goes on in the game. There's so many things that happen in the game where there's not information. And multi-classing is now that new dynamic where it's like, well, you don't know what any class could do. You know, I could verse someone and they're supposed to be slow and tanky, you know, and they could have 80% PDR for all I know, or 80% magic damage reduction, and then hit sprint and savage roar and just go at lightning speed, and there's nothing that stops that train. Yeah. But you wouldn't know that until it's in your face. So that's my problem with multi-classing. It's just I'm like everyone. It's like it's short-term fun, but I think me personally, subjectively, I think objectively, long-term, there's issues. And you said for yourself with Cleric, it's been fun, but multi-classing inherently by bad game design, they nerfed Cleric. They nerfed Smite, I think it is. And the reason they did it is because with other classes, it scaled too high and you could just like almost one-tap people. But instead of just scaling it for other classes or doing something where it's like only for Cleric, you get the benefits, they just nerfed it. So now you as a Cleric, it's a useless thing in comparison to other shit.
If I have a chance to talk to SDF again, I think that would be one of the, if there's a tough question that I would ask him, it would be something to the effect of, why has there not been a mechanic developed for self-cast? Like obviously self-cast exists, but in terms of the way they balance their spells, I haven't seen a spell that says this spell will be 100% effective for you and then 50% effective for someone else. Like that, to me, that would solve so many problems in this game if they just have that system or mechanic in place. And yeah, I don't know, man. I think you and I agree partially on the information thing. I think there does need to be more, and especially the example that you gave with Apex is great because, you know, they draw so much on D&D. One of the things that you typically do as a player in D&D, when you're at the table, you're doing the freaking tabletop thing, role playing it out, and you're in the middle of a fight, the DM is trying to referee and in some cases beat you with his AI, right? And he's not going to volunteer information about the mobs that you're fighting. So as a player, what you typically have to do is say, like, if you're in the middle of a battle, what we would do, and maybe other DMs don't do this, but we would ask the DM, like, hey, so I've hit this guy 3 times with my broadsword and he's taking a fireball to the face from this guy over here. What's he look like right now? Is he looking a little haggard? Is he bleeding? Is he bruised? What's going on with this guy? And that would inform your next action, right? So we've talked about on HTL, I think Ken and I both have railed on about this. Like, I think you don't need to add a lot of blood and gore to the game, but some kind of visual indicator that someone has taken a little bit of a beating, and you know that they're low or at least hurt. I think something like that would definitely go a long way. But I don't think you should know offhand.
I have, it's not perfect. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's just before you go on to another thing.
Yeah.
There's one thing that because I'm busy making a couple other videos. There was one thing in my little comedic videos that I do on the game. I often slip in little like thoughts about game design and stuff as well, not to just make it just, you know, dick jokes the video, right? One of the things I wanted to slip into my next video, and I hope maybe Terrence watches your podcast and SDF gets a wind of it, is what you just said about more information about like, oh, how people are low, right? Like their health. There's one thing I like from the old school arena shooters. All of them did it. Unreal, Quake, Arena, Quake 3. I'm going to make you laugh because I'm going to make some cringy sound effects. But when you were fighting players, even though in a game like that, it's probably just superficial information, but it goes a long way to the sweaties. Let's say you got 100 health, right?
Mm-hmm.
You make pain sounds every time you're hit or whatever the fudge, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
At every interval of like 4 quarters of health, 25 HP, so 75 HP, 50, 25, you're making a different sound effect each time you take damage, right? So I'm at 100 to 75 health. I'm just making right? At 75 minus, I'm starting to go right, and it starts getting deeper or louder.
Some
at 50, yeah. And then like if you play Quake 3 Arena, they're fucking obscene. Like if you're at like 25 HP, your character goes right. I'm telling you, right? It sounds ridiculous, but it will go a long way in this game. Right?
I'm with you, man. We agree
Especially,
on that 100%.
Yeah. And that's not even that complicated. They could get a female and a male VO to do that. Or I bet wherever they get all this stuff from marketplaces online, like asset places, I bet there's already something like that online. It's like there's a pack somewhere where someone's done that and they can do that for the male and female characters of each race or whatever. But
sure. Yeah.
If they start taking the game even more seriously with their money, they can literally just hire like a very, it doesn't have to be high budget. There's so I'm not volunteering myself, but there's people with good microphones out there, right? That like they could just give them they sign a document, a legal document. They they own that voice in the game for perpetuity, and they just do that. They do those pain sounds because it'll go so far, man, for just information.
I know.
Like it's hard for the melee guys because once you're in melee, you can't commit. But for like rogues with hand crossbow, for rangers, for wizards, for clerics, not clerics, but like for anyone who's doing anything that's kind of like close to mid-range range, you can like, oh shit, that guy's tanky. He's not making those low pain. I have not got him. I thought he was 1. I'm out. You can do that. You can make that play. You have that information. But there's so many fights where you've hit someone 5 times with a crossbow or whatever, and you don't know what their PDR or their MDR is. So you just commit, and then it's and then there's 2 hits, and you died with like they had 10 HP left. You're like, God fucking damn it! Like if I only knew. So that's not going to be the be all or end all of information, but it will go a long way. So I hope they do that, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, I'm with you. So
sorry, I tangent a lot.
Oh, you're good, man. We're coming up on an hour already. It's kind of flown by here, and I did want to ask.
Only 2 questions asked too. No, just kidding. Just kidding, Trevor. Sorry.
Well, you did mention BSG earlier, and what a firestorm and shit show they've created over there. One of the things that sparked on my end was just the monetization, like what they're doing over there with the $250 price tag is just insane. And it reminded me that one of the conversations that used to come up a lot that I haven't heard in a while was around how Iron Mace, and I guess we did talk about it a little bit with the Founders Edition earlier, but have we really figured out, or do you feel like you have a good understanding or even recommendation for what their long-term monetization strategy is going to be? I mean, we've got some microtransactions that are cosmetic based, which is great. I mean, we want people buying skins and stuff in the store. I don't get the sense that that's making them a lot of money right now, percentage wise. I know just because of the size of the player base, it's not generating a lot of revenue, but somewhere there's someone that's done the math and says, if your player base is X, you should have X amount of people buying cosmetics.
Yeah.
And if that number isn't hitting, then what's plan B? Like, what are some of the monetization strategies they should be thinking about?
Well, then you like, I mean, someone will say, oh, you're probably wrong, or there's better ways of doing it. I don't know those better ways. That's what, like, if you knew, you wouldn't be asking the question because it'd be obvious.
Right.
The ones that, yeah. So the the next step, which, they shouldn't take, is you go down the Battle State Games route or the EA Games route where you just start fleecing your audience. And then most people, it depends. Certain games, they'll eat the dick. Like The Sims, they're kind of forced because they make modding a bit difficult. It's a bit better now, but in the past they were making modding really difficult, and you were forced to like, oh, if you want like some couch skins, that's $100 DLC pack, the couch pack. It's like, Jesus Christ. I only know about this stuff because I don't really play The Sims. I played the original Sims, but my girlfriend plays all this. Like she's not a gamer. She's just a Sims gamer, right? And I know all about all the Sims crap because of stuff she's told me. And yeah, like it's obscene the amount they charge in The Sims, but because like there's just a certain demographic behind it, they're fine with it. It's like it's normalized. I don't think you can normalize. There's something like I saw a reaction to what was it? You know, the pay to win issue. What was it again? It's slipping me. There was Dark and Darker did slip up. Like Terrence and SDF slipped up. They added something in the store.
Oh,
it was the classes. They were going to sell the classes.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Bard
and people
Warlock
are like,
were locked. Bard and Warlock both were locked behind. Yeah.
And there was a bit of grind to it, but getting the blue shards are like, they take ages, and most people aren't going to get those blue shards.
Oh, you had to extract something like 1,000 times.
To successfully.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah. So people got very vocal about that. Unfortunately, they listened because I think long term that wasn't going to be ideal. But to answer your question, I still think it's skins. And as long as they don't affect the gameplay, like they kind of already do with like the benefits, pros and cons, like 10 plus armor, but 10 negative magic resistance. It's like, I see where it's like, it's whatever. Like it makes, I guess it makes sense. But there is still some like situations where like if you buy, like for instance, if I'm Wizard and I buy the red lizard skin and I have headshot protection, right? Because the head of the lizard does that. It's only 10%, I think. But I get that and armor, right? And then the negative benefit of it is like, the con of it is like I can't wear a hat and I can't have like the attributes off it. Mm-hmm. But I'm getting the speed. You know, I'm getting the speed while still getting headshot protection. You know, so then you can do these other builds where it's like, okay, I don't need to have a helmet or whatever. And when it comes into gear scoring, there's actually pay to win with that. So you know how you got to keep 299 to get like fat lobbies, at least in OCE.
Yeah.
So if I go lizard skin, see, these are the little scammy things I've done with like meta gaming, right?
Yeah.
If I go lizard skin,
yeah,
I don't have a headpiece, so now I'm not getting gear scored, but I also have head protection.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's like pay to win there. So So there's little things that go under the radar like that. But ultimately, to answer your question, if they just make the game frigging awesome and then there's fun and interesting skins and emotes, people will buy them. Because I've seen people buy them. They've clearly got it because I see emotes being used in the lobbies, right? Mm-hmm. People do buy them. Or at least they've been grinding for the blue stones. But people do get them. And I supported the devs and bought a bunch of the stuff. But long term, I genuinely believe if they make the game really good, people will buy skins, and and it can just still be stuff like blue campfires, that fit with the ice realm and all that kind of stuff. Stuff that's like in the aesthetic. It doesn't have to be pink bunny ears and shit that break the vibe of the game. It really doesn't. Look at Hunt Showdown. Hunt Showdown has been successfully staying alive and their servers online by people genuinely buying the skins. They make really awesome skins for the game. And you know what? They could add skins at this point to just items and crap in the game. They really can, because if they're not going to figure out a way to give players information with gear checking and high roller, fuck it. Just give everyone skins of what they want. Like some weird sick skin. Because
like buying dyes for your clothing. What do you think about just selling purple? If you want an all purple kit, you can buy purple dye and
it'll lead into letting teams identify each other now that they've removed names as well in trios.
Right.
Because if we're the pink squad, we're the you know what I mean? We're the filthy Frank crew. But like what do you call it? I believe in giving players information and like putting skins over items and stuff where it's like I can't tell if they've got dark armor now or whatever is going to be an issue. But I can't read players half the time anyway now with multi-classing and gear, like what gear people have in high roller. It just feels like that's why I like playing range classes more than melees, because you're just rolling the dice with your interactions, in my opinion. So if they're not going to change how that system works and they haven't got good ideas for giving people information with gear and making it more defined, then just go hard with that, and people will buy that. If I can do, not that we're going to have digital camo, but just for example, right? If I could have like honeycomb gold skin on my armor, right? And I know the gold armor is actual information. There's a couple of things that are information in the game. The gold armor is like, they got gold armor. That's the one thing that's actual information in the game. You're going to remove that. But people want to buy skins like that. Yeah. So they're the only things where you actually have information. So that's an example of information. But most people don't even use the ruby and cobalt anymore. I just see the odd gold item and that's about it. But people will buy emotes and skins if the game's fun. That's my opinion. Like if it's fun, if the game's trendy and people are enjoying the gameplay loop, people like ship it up. You know, they're like fucking doing all these stupid little dances and like people like it. They will get it. But the game has no mass appeal right now, and it's a niche. And then you have this thing where I reckon there's some gamers where they may not invest in skins now because they don't think the game's going to be around here long term. I remember buying to support Cycle Frontier. I bought $100 pack, right, to support the devs. Yeah, I did. AUD. I don't know what USD is, so that's probably like 70 USD or something, right?
Okay.
I bought a 70 USD pack to support the devs, right? And within 3 months after that, they fucking shut the servers down. So what I'm getting at is like there's that energy. People have been burned. So they don't know what the future of the game is. Like there's all this talk about, is the game dead, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's a dead game yet. But like it's decided with how they launch the game in the next 6 to 12 months, right? And I think Terrence is aware of that. He's very self-aware. I've messaged him once or twice, and I'll never like leak DMs or anything, but he seems very aware of things and calm. So I actually have a lot of confidence because Terrence seems to have a lot of confidence in the process. So I think things are going to be okay long term. But like right now, like if this was the released version of the game, and like people aren't going to buy skins like thinking the game could shut any minute. So there's a mix. Yeah. It's like
that's fair.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So I think if the game's got an awesome, think about the things you're passionate about. Sometimes you like buy things and you're like, I didn't really need that, but like I'm really passionate about this thing. Say it's a game. I'm not huge into buying skins, but there's a couple skins and stuff like Cycle I bought skin packs for because I'm passionate about the game.
Yep.
I did it in the early days of Apex before they became $1 billion empire, right? You know, I bought some Bangalore skins because I was loving the game, loving the character. Yep. So I think the same thing will happen with this game. They get the gameplay state really good, and maybe they have some exclusive like wizard style cosmetics. Like, you know, it's a wizard. You know, you don't think it's something else. It's identifiable as a wizard, but there's wizard cosmetics. And you're like, shit, yeah, I want that. Even like, imagine this, like a wizard skin, like just his actual body skin, not the actual armor and clothing, where it's like dreadlocks. He's got dreadlocks and like some crazy jewelry. And he looks like some kind of like voodoo dude or something. Yep. You know what I mean?
Tattoos. That
dude, dude, some arcane like face tattoo, some weird like symbol and shit. I'm telling you now, dudes will buy it. They'll nerd out. But if the game's in a good state and they're really passionate about the class they're playing and what they're playing. So agreed. I think they're fine how it is. They just need to get the game in. The good times need to start rolling. That's basically it. And then they just got to get creative with stuff like that we just talked about. So what are your thoughts? I'll flick it on you. I know it's my interview, but I'll flick it on you. What do you think?
No, I agree with all that. And I have faith that they will get the wrinkles ironed out with multi-classing. But I think your take is really fair. I think a lot of people are going to be reluctant to dump their hard-earned shekels into a game that they don't have a lot of faith in. And half the community right now, I think, is kind of at least on the fence, and there's a significant portion, maybe they're the vocal minority, but they feel significant to me, that just think the game is going downhill because of multiclassing. And I think those are the same people I was talking about earlier that aren't reading or paying attention to the things that the devs are saying. So it's good to have you as the lead dev telling the people now exactly what's happening. But yeah, I mean,
that rogue video.
Arena is one thing that I actually have a negative perspective about. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but Grayson did make a comment about how Arena is not going to be what we think it is. And Soma's on record, and I think Jay and basically everybody on the Darkest Hour has said they're really hoping that the Arena is not really separate from the dungeon delving experience, that it's somehow tied into it. And that could take a lot of different shapes and forms, but Grayson seemed to corroborate that sentiment at one point. He said it's not what you guys think it is. And I'm actually curious now.
All I can think of, and this is why I hope I'm wrong, because it means my creativity isn't going past a myopic view, but all I can think of is, all right, so they're trying not to make a separate experience. All I can think of what they're going to do is it's like another queue. So it is a kind of separate experience, but it's interwoven with like reward systems and gear and the economy. So you go in there. That's not it. But that's what I'm thinking they're doing. That's what I think they're going to, like, you go in there to get gear to then go in the dungeon. Like if you're successful, you get rewarded with this. Then if you do that, and then it's like, well, now you have reason impetus. But I think people are so obsessed with PvP and everything else is an excuse to get to PvP in the game that you just cut to the PvP. And then that'll make some of the other queues feel pretty empty because there'll be people sweating PvP. Yeah, there'll be people sweating PvP just staying in that lobby. And then the rest of the game is over there. So I hope I'm completely wrong and they're just doing something mind-blowing. But then the cynic in me is going, that's going to be the system and it's going to suck ass because it's going to be just another fucking queue out of 20 queues already with like gear-based matchmaking and high roller and normals with 3 maps. So the pessimist and cynic in me is going, yeah, it's just a wet fart already. But everyone's like, nah, man, it's different. But I mean, look at Tarkov, dude. You know what I mean? Like the reason why people play Tarkov is like it's a sandboxy rather, not sandbox, but sandboxy survival FPS with extraction, right? And you go in there, you're looting, the dopamine's kicking in your brain because, oh, I found, a CPU. Oh, I found some used Tic Tacs, right? And then you have the odd PvP interaction where you're now getting all those guys, Tic Tacs and CPUs and socks and stuff that they have in their bag, right? And that's a big part of it. And none of that is in Arena. It's just like a 5v5 Counter-Strike sort of version of Tarkov.
Right.
And as much as people, the nerds of Tarkov will say, oh, dude, no, fucking Tarkov is like another experience, bruh. No, there's no PvP like it. It's like, they're really, the PvP in that game isn't, I got a hot take, I'm going to piss off some of your viewers. It's not as skill expressive and as games like Apex or Counter-Strike or Valorant, where there's lots of mechanical gameplay involved in it. There's mechanics in Tarkov, but whether the Tarkov nerds want to believe it or not, it's mostly map knowledge, holding angles, and quickly peeking a corner.
Agreed.
And the only time you can have real skill expression, in my opinion, when it comes to fights, is you're pushing them with grenades. You force them out of positions. Mm-hmm. A grenade makes someone move. But other than that, you can't do anything other than hold an angle. So when Tarkov Arena came out, it's just people have the slow, clunky, like piano on your back movement, and you're clunkily moving around the map, taking damage. And because of the way the game was designed, you don't have time to heal. So they have all the healing systems of Tarkov, which are slow and clunky, and the game's moving like it's drug, sex, and rock and roll, but everyone's slow and clunky. So it's like imagine if you ever like played Counter-Strike back in the day, like when you could host your own servers in Source or 1.6, as an admin, you could put like low grav on, or like put the move speed, like CL move speed _ 200 instead of 600 or whatever it is. And all of a sudden, and that's what like Tarkov Arena to me, I didn't play it, but I watched it and everyone complained about it anyway. Mm-hmm. It just looked like one of those servers of Counter-Strike that was just munted with all the settings on like making it unbearable. So yeah, so Tarkov Arena is a good example of like, okay, you're making a PvP like just an arena, symmetrical version of another game. Dark and Darker would have the same issue because I just feel like most of the fights don't have that much skill expression in them. Like I enjoy the game, but I feel like the skill expression is like there's so much dice rolling, man. You just don't know what you're dealing with half the time. Everyone's just like awkwardly bashing each other. Shields have desync. Half the time I use a shield, a fucking sword goes through in the middle of it. It's just all sorts of shit that just like I just don't see why like their impetus was immediately focus on Arena. I'm the king of tangents. This goes on to I'm going to turn your question into a question to you, right? They're still testing so much about the base game. Why at any point was there a focus to like, oh, we've got to make an arena mode? They already have issues with queues and splitting up the player base. Now they're doing multiclassing. Why is there an arena mode focus? And unless, like you said, that like Grayson and all those guys have said that it is something that's going to blow people's minds and it's different, it's not what you think. And if it isn't and it is what we think it is, right. What the fuck?
I don't know, man. The only thing I can think of is that there has been a demand for a while for private servers so that we can host tournaments, right? Like Soapy's done some tournaments. So Bad had some tournaments back in the day. A couple other folks have done tournaments as well. There has been demand for that. And I'm wondering if rather than just completing the private server setup for tournament hosting, they decided to go to arenas instead. That's still, I don't know if that flies. I don't feel good about saying that out loud. It seems like they're completely different in my mind. Mm-hmm. And the private server seems easier. Like it should be easier to set up a private instance of the game or a tournament server that, I mean, they've done that in how many different games? It doesn't make sense.
You can do all this shit once you have a really successful base game or whatever mode, like you've nailed the first thing of your game, right? You can do this. And then you like Fortnite, you've got like 1 million concurrent players. But if you're a niche and now you're trying to cater to like a whole bunch of different niches, you're trying to do 100 games in one. And I feel like they're going down that energy with this game the last 6 months. And I don't think it bodes well unless like for some reason the game like just triples its player base. Like, yeah. and at the end of the day, as a consumer and gamer, you have to pick your games for what you want. Like I don't play Dark and Darker expecting Quake. I don't go, oh, you know what they need in this game? They need an insta-gib mode where we're all rangers and we can all one-tap each other. Yeah. So I don't like, you know what I mean? Like so like, not to be crass, but like you got to like, all right, I'm using a wild metaphor and analogy, but like, imagine I'm a kinky dude. I'm into BDSM. I want to be suspended upside down in a latex suit and be fucking tarred and feathered, right? Or, right, I can settle with like a super loving relationship and it's super vanilla. But the other parts of this experience with the relationship, right, minus the BDSM, is super fulfilling. Mm-hmm. And I could have the BDSM, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to prefer. And the analogy and the metaphor is the BDSM is the alternate modes, right?
Yep.
The base game is the fulfilling, nourishing relationship.
Yes. I'm tracking.
Yeah. And I just feel like they haven't got the nourishing relationship with the base game. We're fucking around with BDSM. I don't want cock and ball torture, SDF.
That is a fair way of putting it, for sure. Yeah, I hope. I mean, that, like I said, that's one of the very few things I have really been almost exclusively negative about. Like, I've been one of the bigger Iron Mace homers and have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to
to iron out the kinks with multi-classing, all the other things that have kind of gone wrong. And like Druid right now seems like, holy crap, it's going to be mega overpowered. They'll get it dialed in. Like Bard started weak, then they went way the other way in typical Iron Mace fashion, and now it feels okay. I mean, you can say what you want about the trios meta and how powerful it is for buff ball comps, but all in all, Bard as a class feels pretty good. Warlock may still need a little bit of nerfing, and the rest of the classes aren't that bad. As much as I complain about Cleric for a solo class, Cleric in normals feels fine. Even before multi-classing, I could still get away with playing Cleric in normals, but Cleric in HR solo, it's just, it's not meant to be. And that's where they have the biggest issue, I think, long-term with the game, is how to handle quote unquote support classes. Because right now, Cleric is the only one that plays like a support class. And if they follow through with their plan for the Sorcerer, then we can expect the Wizard to lose a lot of their offensive firepower and move towards utility. So it's like Wizard is almost being potentially relegated to the realm of a support class like the Cleric. And how do you make those fun in HR down the road? Those, between that and Arena, those are really my bigger concerns. But the latter, the Arena, if I said that was the latter, that definitely concerns me. And I'm with you 100%. I don't understand the thought process behind that getting any kind of bandwidth. Like maybe they have one guy and that's all he knows how to do. Maybe they hired somebody from Mordau and he's like, yeah, I built the Mordau Arena mode, so I know how to do that. That's all I'm going to do here. Maybe they just have one guy, because they have a lot of one guy scenarios over there. But
I could see them. I could see them doing like, it pops up randomly on the map now and then. There's like an arena, and it's like, it's accessible for an hour, and everyone rushes it.
Fantastic.
Shit like that. Maybe a system like that. Good. That's where I could be like, fine, whatever. All right, like every half hour it's available for 10 minutes or 2 hours or something. But there'll be issues. People will bitch, I want it available 24/7, and then the devs will be like, let's give it to them, and then it's just whatever.
It's like map rotation. When they finally gave us map rotation, everybody was asking for it, and then everyone wanted to get rid of it. Now everybody's asking for it back again. It's like, guys, we can't keep splitting up the queues, and map rotation solved a lot of issues. And all I heard was, well, but I want to do my thing over and over, and that's the way I want to play the game. It's like the map rotation was the most fair to everyone, full stop. There was no question. And maybe you could argue that the queue times, or the rotation times rather, should have been lower. I'm sure they thought through a lot of that. Maybe a half hour was too much. They ended up going down to 15 minutes? Was that the lowest they got it to? But then they staggered it. I thought where they landed with that was fine. Like they had a nice kind of staggered approach where it was actually like it ended up that there was a rotation on one of them, like every 5 minutes. It ended up working really well. But again, it was kind of going back to that communication thing. They should have had the schedule. Like I had to go make a Google freaking sheet to map this thing out, so that I knew what dungeon was going to show up when.
Same with gear scoring.
Schedule, right?
You gotta go to Google.
Absolutely. Jeez, man.
You could be one item over. You're still weak as piss to go in the tier 2 lobby, but you get in there and now everyone's got gold and shit, and you get turbo nerded.
Right.
Yeah, what I mean.
Dies. I hope that dies. I hope it goes away. I want just normals and high roller and leave it at that. Like we don't need gear score. We don't need MMR. Just put everybody into.
Thing is, you're like that, and you're from NA. I'm from OCE. We have like 10% the players you have.
Yeah,
so we really feel it.
Can't imagine.
So yeah, the game feels very empty to me these days, because it's like I just constantly get like half lobbies. But I know there's players. It's just they're split up between just way too much shit now.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully they work it out. I don't. That just to tell in what you were saying, like, listening to the community, the consumer's not always right. The customer's not always right. Like it's a false fucking, I don't know.
No,
I don't know what to call it, but just a
that I got
misnomer.
Sales was the customer is always the customer.
Yeah, all right.
That was a very good saying. Yeah,
I like that. because you got to listen to feedback. You do have to like listen to the audience and read the room. Like the developers have to do that, but you can't listen to everything because, like, remember what I said? Like, I don't see myself as above people, but there is such a thing as the average person. For instance, like, you know, someone's opinion of like how to do content creation, whether it's YouTube or Twitch, for me doing it for 5 years now will be very different to someone who's just getting into it now. I'll have perspectives on things that like I may seem jaded about certain things. It's like, no, I've just been around the block a whole bunch. And it's the same with game development. It's like all these people that think they know better than the game devs, like there's some people that have valid points and you have to take it on board. For instance, like I would say someone who's been in the esports scene for years and then they've like played a variety of games would have some good feedback as a player versus someone who's probably 18 years old. They've only played League of Legends for the last 4 years and they just started playing this. And now they want like some crazy, like they want all the classes to have like crazy AoEs and all sorts of shit. It's just like, no, like you don't know what you're talking about.
Abilities, yeah.
Yeah. So they need to feed that. Sorry, they need to go through the feedback, right? And delineate like what's useful and what isn't. And the majority, like if everyone's like, oh, this is terrible, there's something to it. But at the same time, you still have to work out, are these people just used to what they're used to? Because a lot of people, they just stay in their comfort zones.
Or are they just copying everybody else? Or did they watch one thing or read one post and everybody's parodying the same thing over and over? That's the other risk.
And I think SDF and Terrence were learning this in the early days of like the early access 12 months ago or whatever it's been, because they were reactionary to all the noise. If everyone's loud about something, they fixed it, changed it. And then people bitched about the change. And they're like, oh, quick, change that. And look at the all attributes back.
Yeah.
Like that yo-yo in like the space of like 3 weeks. It was like there was 4 fundamental changes to the game and how it felt like immediately in like the space of 2 weeks. It changed 4 times. And it was like such a violent whiplash. That's what I'm saying. They can't do that on the release of the game. They just can't. Right. But I feel like they were a bit green in like dealing with a community in a game. I don't know their history completely, but I feel like they were more cogs in the machine as game developers in the past, and they didn't have to deal with this on this level. They didn't have to think about that. They didn't have to. Like Terrence and SDF, I could see live they were dealing with like, oh, this is what an angry mob behind, like passionately behind a game is like. We have to juggle this. So I'm not speaking on their behalf. That's just my perception of how the early days, right?
Yep.
And they seem to be dealing with it a lot better now. Like the last couple of months, I'm just like, yeah, they seem to actually like they're sticking to their convictions and working with what's there. So yeah, I don't know. They just have to it's a delicate thing. Like you have to listen to feedback, but at the same time, you can't listen to all of it, you know? That's why I don't pop off about everything all the time. There's so many things I could pop off about, but I'm like, well, it's probably leading towards something else right now, you know? Like I haven't made a video shit talking multiclassing. It's like, what's the point? There's so many vocal people about it already. They already know it. And the things I have to say are obvious. Like the main issue I have with it is just class identity. That's my only major issue with it. I can't read fights. I don't know what the fuck I'm dealing with. I've lost so many fights in the last month when I streamed the game because it was just like, oh, I can do this, that. Oh, the guy's, he's at max speed for like 20 seconds. He's literally hit sprint, then savage roar. And I had no idea because I outrun someone, but then they did the double tap of like the next speed boost. And I was like, God damn it. So, yeah. No, I'm hopeful. I am hopeful about their design process at the moment, as long as it doesn't stay the way it is when they do the next big push to the broader public. Because what's there now, us, the players and the content creators, we're the hardcores, we're the do or dies. I think what the average like 6,000 to 10,000 people. I have a suspicion there's about 1,000 RMT bots in the play account in the game. I roughly think there's 6,000 to 8,000 people, like any given time average, right? Dude. You'll be surprised, man. I've done some experiments where you put certain things on trade and they immediately fucking go.
Oh yeah,
like immediately go. That's a bot, dude. Yeah. There's no way. There's not enough plays for it to go immediately. So there's bots in the trade, right? In the marketplace, like actual fucking bots. But yeah, no, I think the 6,000 to 8,000 average that are in the lobby, the game at any time, they're do or die, and I think they'll be around the game for the next 3 to 6 months. It'll probably die down a bit if they really cook the game. Like there was one patch, I think, a few months back, maybe 3 or 4 months, just before the wipe. They were experiment. I can't remember what it was, but the wipe was already like causing issues because it was just very stale for a while at the end of wipe. And then there was something they did with the game. It was just averaging like 3,000 people in the lobbies.
Yeah,
it was just dead and osh.
It was low for a hot minute. Yeah.
I think that can happen again, just with things stagnating in general. But there's like 6,000 to 8,000 average, like in the game. I think that's like that's its core until they push the game in the next year, and then they just got to knuckle down on like not whiplashing the player base, and they truly test things on a test server. Because the average, like I said earlier in this interview podcast, like just the average player won't stand around and take it, the whiplash stuff. They're here for fun. They're not here to test a game, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah.
I'm with you. I have hope, but I hope that also they're taking into account these types of conversations that we're having, because this is definitely not everything we've discussed today has been brought up, I think, in one way, shape, or form on your live streams. Jay's, it's been on the Darkest Hour pod, it's been on our pod. Almost none of this is news to them. The question is whether or not they're able. I think they have the ability to do all these things. They have the ability to do any of these things, but they don't have the ability to do all things, right? That's the issue of the small company, or the double-edged sword. Like, small companies can be nimble, they can easily change directions, and you know, in this game, sometimes too fast. They change directions way too fast. But the flip side of that is that they're obviously constrained by their resources. So the pain is real when you make a bad decision to invest resources on something big and it doesn't pay off. It really hurts. But what you just mentioned actually does give me a lot of hope, in that if you've got 6,000 to 8,000 diehard people that are into your game through come hell or high water, and I would slightly disagree that any of those people are going to quit and not come back. Like, I know when you lose your average player, I 100% agree they're probably not coming back. Like, I played Cycle for a fair amount of time. Actually, you and I had similar histories. I played a ton of Apex. Was the only game I played for like 2.5 years. And then I got sick of Apex and I was looking for something else, and I didn't really want to play Tarkov. And it was like, oh, well, Cycle seems like a kind of Tarkov light, and it's free to play. I'll give it a try. And that was the first real extraction game I had ever played, and I loved it. But then, as we all know, it was ruined by cheaters, and the devs made some just really crazy, questionable decisions. And I watched that go in the tank the same way that you did.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't see a lot of the. Hopefully, I don't see a lot of the same hallmark traits in Iron Mace that I do see in some of these other games or game companies that are tanking. So I'm still, despite all of our constructive feedback over the last 20 minutes, half hour, or however long it's been, I still have a lot of hope for the game. And I think the next month or two is going to be really, really interesting once SDF implements the new version of multiclassing, or if they get rid of it altogether. I think the game's going to be really, really banging again.
Yeah. No, look, what did I play recently? I played another, I can't even remember, that's how forgettable it was. I played another multiplayer game a week ago. I thought, I'm just going to take a break from Dark and Darker.
Is it
and then
Dragon's Dogma was single player, right? Or co-op?
No, I can't even remember what I played. I genuinely can't remember. I played it, and Grey Zone. I remember now. I played the Grey Zone.
Yeah.
And dude, I understand the Tarkov guys are frothing over it right now because they need a game to jump over, like the content creators and the gamers. because like if you play the game, you're a part of the problem. You know, the boycott culture, right?
Sure.
So they're all on gray zone, and it's like armed assault meets Tarkov. That's the best way to put it. It's like armed assault meets Tarkov, like menu systems and healing, and then extraction. But I find it incredibly boring, and I got a feeling like it's such a good example of where the multiplayer state of the game industry is at right now. Like this game, there's games from like 20 years ago that just blow this out the water, game design wise, gameplay. It's like if anyone likes it, watching your podcast or you like it, there's no hate from me. It's just me subjectively, I find it like it is a walking simulator, and the AI is brain dead. I don't see any. It's getting crazy like review bombs right now. Like it's in the negative, but most of it's to do with because the performance is terrible. But for me, it's just like it's such an unstimulating experience. You just run around in this what feels like a very empty world of just beautiful assets of jungle in the Unreal Engine. Like it's nice looking, but like it just feels empty. It feels like I'm in like an empty dev map. I played that and I was like, Jesus Christ. Like I stomached it for a couple hours. I may give it another go. Like there's sporadic moments of fun. That's the issue with the game. But the PvP's locked behind like hours of questing and shit, and then you randomly encounter people after like 20 hours, like once or twice, and they could be in a bush and you just get one tapped. That's the game. Yeah. And I played that after I won't name streamers, but one of them's my friend. And they just big ups, just hyped it up. And now I feel like they're a fraud because I played it and I was just like, dude, this is fucking shit. It's so boring and it runs like ass, man. And I went immediately back to Darker. I went back to like, I was going to be profane on your stream. I just went back to dealing with 12 inches of Sprint and Savage Raw all fucking day in Darker. Like I'd rather that than just tumbleweed, you know? Yeah. So I feel like that's like, what Darker has a lot going for right now. There is just nothing going on other than the shit that's been going on for 10 years. You know, like the Battle Royales, League of Legends, all the mainstays. All the mainstays are there. And they just do their little cosmetic content updates every 3 months. But when it comes to like, there's like this new game that's making me reinvigorated and like I'm enjoying multiplayer. This hasn't been anything in ages, dude. Not for me, at least. Like me personally. It's just been so dry. The ones that they've had issues, like you said, with Cycle and then just flopped, you know?
Yep.
So,
I'm with you, man. Well, hey, we'll wrap it up here, but I did want to ask one question, which is kind of more content creation focused. Yeah. You have a new channel, so contents per minute is something that you've been working on, and one of the questions that kind of ties into that, because you're obviously passionate about cinema and creating good videos that are really balanced between high quality production, entertainment, information. You do a great job of it. Contents per minute is going to allow you a different channel to do more than just Dark and Darker. Because I think at one point I heard you say that, you know, one of the double-edged sword that you got from becoming so prevalent in the Dark and Darker community is that it just wrecked the algorithm for you for your main channel, right? So anytime you go outside of Dark and Darker, it's really, really rough to get viewership. So I think that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was one of the motivations behind contents per minute. So the question, all of that to set the stage, the question I wanted to ask is there any video that you've produced like in the last, let's say 3 years, and maybe it goes back further, that stands out as like your magnum opus, that like, this is my favorite thing that I've ever created. I had the most fun making it. And when I go back and I look at it now, maybe I touch myself a little bit because this is just where it's at. Your favorite video of all time.
Battle bit video. I did a battle bit video. Yeah. And it's like if I did it on another game that had like 1 million concurrent players and it was like a generational game that had, because I think BattleBit ends with BattleBit. Like I think it's sort of like not many people care about it anymore. I can't play it in Osh because the servers are pretty quiet and cheating issue. It always follows every fucking game. But and
just for the people that don't know, that video is how long? How long is that runtime on that video?
It's an hour.
Yeah.
something like that. I literally made it like a comedic movie because it's got some little animated bits. That's like it's a storyline where I introduce like EA is like a is embodied in one character, and there's some little sideways digs about greed and power and all that kind of stuff with the game industry. So yeah, I tried to do it like a 3-act thing. But you say that like my BattleBit video, the contents per minute channel is still going to happen, but it's taken a little pause because I'm still working with my artist friend to build more assets for it. But also on the TheSpudHunter like YouTube channel, I have been slowly breaking out of just doing like I'm going to continue making darker stuff, but I wanted to do other stuff as well as, right? And I'm finding the last couple of videos I've done, I think I'm building up an audience that do watch me for things that aren't dark and darker.
Nice.
Like a couple of my recent videos are just like, they're still getting in the system and there's new viewers coming through. And I've actually been blown away by it because I thought, oh, I'm hard stuck. Like there is a lot of RNG and luck to like the whole YouTube thing. Like I've not just randomly increased my ability to make videos. They're just getting more viewers out of nowhere, right? Huh. Because I feel some of my earlier videos, like the BattleBit one, I put insane levels of effort into that, like obscene, and like it doesn't, like some things reap more benefits than that, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't add up.
Sure.
So but the recent video that I'm about to release, maybe tonight, if I finish it after this podcast, I've just got to finish the tail end of it. I've not to shill myself, but I've done a video on the Tarkov controversy, and not just because I'm just another YouTube dickhead just trying to cash in on the controversy and like, you know, get ad revenue or whatever. I get like $100 in a video, like it's nothing, right? It's more because it sets the stage to talk about boycott culture and the game industry. So I actually talk about Blizzard, Activision, and all the stuff that went down with that. And it's an excuse for me to sort of poke fun at boycott culture and not shame people for it. Just like, are you going to stick to your convictions, right?
Right.
So I've tried to make it funny and interesting as possible. And yeah, I'm actually really proud of it. It feels like it's up there with like comedic investigative journalism, because I kind of spread the cheeks a little bit of VSG, because there's like a big history that like I found there's no one concise video that just goes bang, this is, you know, AD or BC rather up to AD, you know, and I kind of do that in the video. It's going to be about 28 minutes long. And yeah, it's I just feel like if I did the video anytime before this, I think it would be taken in the wrong way, because you get fanboy culture that will defend things to the grave, even if they're being like, if you're in like, you know, if someone's in an abusive relationship and you say, hey, look, that guy that's beating you up all the time, you can do better than that. And they're like, no, you don't understand. I can change him. I felt like the Tarkov community was in that relationship for a long time.
100%.
And this was like, this was like this was that moment that, you know, sort of broke the camel's back, so to speak. You know, it was just sort of like, all right, you can fuck with people all you want, but as soon as you start fucking with their money, then they get really pissed.
Yep.
So,
yes, they do.
So I thought, all right, well, I've wanted to make this video for years, basically, but I thought no matter if I made this video, I would just be that, that's that arsehole that's like really salty towards Escape from Tarkov.
Right.
So
right.
I feel like it's the perfect time to really like help people open up their eyes and go, look, you realize this isn't new behavior. This has been like an ongoing thing, and you're just aware of it. There was a couple streamers in the past that I talked to about what went on with Tarkov, and there was like all sorts of shady shit they told me about, but like it's just not stuff you talk about online, because it's, well, you know, it opens up too many doorways to some heavy politics and
yep.
even libel. Although I don't know if like Russian dudes in Russia can pursue libel, but
right.
I think they got bigger fish to fry now.
Either way, you don't want to be on their radar either way. Yeah.
Well, one question for you, right? You know what, I've made, just to finish what you just said. If I upload this video, I'm well aware they may try and DMCA it or something. They've done that to people that write, they do any kind of journalism against their product. They DMCA strike it. There's this guy called Aroctic. He made all sorts of videos about the cheating pandemic before the wiggle that killed Tarkov. and he kept getting takedowns on his videos. That's real.
Dang.
Like I'm not. It's not bullshit. Like you look it up. So
Jeez. Well, I know that like the video with Landmark, like being on the web, like them actively changing the web page as he's streaming it was insane.
Yeah,
like
that may be featured in the video that I've made.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, but on a positive note, you seem like a film fan yourself. What's your favorite Star Wars film, and why is it Empire Strikes Back?
Man, yes, that is correct. Yes. Yes. After Empire, it's probably original Star Wars that has a special place in my heart for sure. It came out the year I was born, so 1977. That is second. Third would probably be, I mean, it's really hard to put Rogue One third over Return of the Jedi, but I think I might have to do it just because it's so well done. And even though I like those characters don't resonate with me in my childhood at all, obviously, because it came out so much later, it's just, if I evaluated it objectively as a piece of art, it's just really, really head and shoulders above pretty much anything else. And I thought Andor was a fantastic show that no one ever watched. And it was one of the few things that it's the only thing that has happened in Star Wars since Disney took over that's had any kind of value to it whatsoever.
Yeah, substance.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of the movies and the shows, they feel very franchisey.
Oh god.
Whereas like Andor feels like it's like that that scene with Skarsgård.
Yeah,
pretty captivating, isn't it? That's like some Shakespeare level shit.
It is. It's crazy. I made my mind a sunless place or something like that. Like, whoa, where did this come from?
God damn.
Cow. Yeah. That was fantastic. But yeah, it's Empire. Back to the original question. It is Empire for sure.
Amen. Now I'll put that just to finish up on that. I reckon I attribute that to Irvin Kershner because he was an outsider to it. He's the director.
Mm-hmm.
So, George Lucas didn't want to direct the next one. He sort of gave the next person, an A4 sheet of, hey, this is the story, this is where, and the writer and director just took it into just a much more layered movie, Like, if you think about it, all the iconic stuff of Star Wars is literally from that film.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Darth Vader theme, like Yoda,
Yep.
Empire, everything. So even, after
except
George sold it.
I had the Ewok Village. That was not Empire.
But that's Return. That's Return,
Right. And the Ewoks are a freaking meme now anyway. But as a kid, those are great toys.
I think Return of the Jedi is half a decent film. They just kind of messed up with the Ewok thing, like wiping out the stormtroopers. It just kind of removed the threat of the Empire and the stormtroopers.
Yeah,
and then
100%.
When it comes to character arcs, Han Solo and Leia, sort of, they were just there. They were there to just like destroy the shield. That's it.
Yeah.
They didn't have like arcs. Whereas like Luke had his arc, like in Empire, everyone has some kind of arc or a low point or loss. You have the love story with Leia and Han.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of impactful moments. You have a redemption arc from spoilers. God damn, why's my name slipping me? The one that runs the Sky City.
Lando.
I don't know why his name slipped me. He has a redemption arc because there's betrayal halfway through the film, and then he has second thoughts.
Right.
There's all characters have arcs. In Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker is pretty much the only dude who has an actual arc, and it's a good one. And that's what actually saves the film because, like, Vader, the Emperor, and Luke have interesting storylines and arcs, right?
Right.
And his father has a redemption arc. That's it. The rest of the characters, it's just action and things happening, but it doesn't feel as impactful to me, at least, anyway. In a writing perspective. But that's the only thing that makes that movie shy, like the original trilogy being a perfect trilogy. It's just because it's just some weak parts of it, but it's not a terrible movie. But yeah, this is not my movie. podcast, so I'll shut up.
No, it's all good.
But yeah, Empire, it's awesome. I just like when I used to watch your player profiles, I was looking at those posters in the background. I was like, yeah, he loves his movies. Only movie nerds chuck on the posters. You know?
Oh man, yeah, that was such a huge part of my childhood. I still have a lot of the original toys stuffed away in my crawl space. Unfortunately, or fortunately, none of them are brand new. So it means they got some use, they were played with, but from a collector's or value perspective, they're probably not worth a whole lot. But maybe, who knows? Maybe someday people will have a market for used original like Kenner Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, man, it's been a huge part of my childhood for sure. That, and I don't know, Indiana Jones didn't really compare, but like, I don't know if there was any other there was nothing on par with Star Wars. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. There was nothing even close that was like a cultural phenomenon.
Well, back then, maybe not. Back then, definitely not. But now I'd say people have like the Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings was definitely that in the early 2000s. Yes. And that's my second favorite. Yeah. So it's Star Wars. And then in terms of trilogies, Lord of the Rings, Matrix is a close third. And, there's another trilogy. Like I still think the original 3 Indiana Jones were good, and you know, after that they're complete garbage. But
yeah, no, they lost their way with Kingdom of Skull. Hey, look, they set off into the sun in Last Crusade. That's the true ending to me.
Yes,
they literally ride off into the sun.
What
So that's the true ending to me.
I know.
You know.
I know.
But yeah, there'll still be good ones. There's still more trilogies to come. Like it might like. It's okay if it's not your cup of tea, but Dune Part 1 and 2.
I love Dune. I absolutely love it.
We've still got the Messiah to come out. Like they're doing it, so that's a trilogy. So I'm very keen to see how they finish that up.
To see like that was the first like adult movie that I took him. He's 12, and we've only been to the big screen like twice in the last 2 years probably together, and we saw the Super Mario Brothers movie, and the second thing I took him to was to see Dune 2, and he loved it. Like that'll be something that sticks with him for a long time because he's never seen anything like
well, you never know. You probably made him a filmmaker now. He's probably going to grow up to be a director writer or something.
We'll see, man.
It's one of those movies that does that. It made me want to make films. I was like, I got really cynical about the movie industry, and then I see that and I'm like, Denis Villeneuve's Sicario got me into his filmography because like, dude, this is really full on. And then I watched Blade Runner, his 2049, Arrival.
As big a fan of that. I felt like Blade Runner compared to Dune, I mean, quality
definitely
is not even close.
It's a very slow movie, that one. It's very I think I get into that because of I know why I like that movie and why a lot of people probably think it's slow and boring. And it's not because I'm just so refined and I know what art is. It's like I really enjoy the themes that it covers, which is loneliness and all sorts of shit. There's so many layers to that film, and I feel like just making it very grim and drawn out really tends to like its themes, but I could see how it needed to. Like for instance, it opens up with Ryan Gosling taking out one of the replicants, and it's a big dude. It's like a bit of a intense action scene at the start, and then it's like an hour and a half of just lots of dialogue and drawn out scenes, and then it all happens at the end. You know, like that's not for everyone. You know.
Yeah.
So, but like you can see the DNA in his films. Like he's got this brutalistic style. He has a way of like with his cinematographers, he doesn't have sets and places just overloaded with information. You got the focus subjects, you know, the actors and whatever. Like, you know, there'll be environments in the set pieces that can be messy for a reason, but there has to be a reason it is. A lot of films, there's just noise on the screen.
Right.
Yeah. So I like it's kind of his style, and it's grown on me where I'm like, I like movies like this where I'm focusing on the information. I'm not you know what I mean? I'm not like lost in the source with what's on the screen. So Dune has a lot of that. And obviously, like it helps being in the desert, but like you see, even the other set pieces, like the Harkonnen arena and stuff, like it's just
That was so good.
God. Yeah. Hans Zimmer elevated that another level as well.
No
that was
kidding,
just
man.
biblical. But that's you're a good dad. I want you to know that taking your kid to a movie like that. Maybe when I'm older, I'll see one of his movies. It's going to be a masterpiece now. All right, you've spawned another film director.
I don't know. Like I asked him on the ride home. So it was me, my son, and then my dad went. So it was the 3 generations, all going to see this film, and it's the first time all 3 of us have ever gone to see a movie together. And we're riding on the car home. And my dad looks over at me. He's like, "So what'd you think?" I was like, "I'm blown away." It was a 9.5 out of 10. Like, I don't know what it could have done to be any better. I hate giving a 10 out of 10 score. And he was just like, "Hey, what did you think, kid?" And my son's just like, "That was awesome." Like his mind was, you could just see the wheels turning because he's trying to process all of this as a
His son grabs a kitchen blade at home, goes, "That's not game." What have I done?
Like trying to talk through all of that, all of the different themes and motivations and what, what the author is really trying to convey. And just, there's so many layers to it. Like there's no way he's going to pick up all of it, but just the visual aesthetic alone, he loved the fight scenes, of course. But like there were certain scenes that did stick out to him that, who knows, maybe 5-10 years from now,
I think when I think of movies now when at the end of a scene, you almost want to get up and charge with the leader, like into battle, you want to become like a religious zealot. Like, cause when when Charlemagne does the line, where he's looking up to the ceiling in the southern tribes and he's saying, "The hand of God be my witness, I will lead you to paradise." That whole scene building up to that moment and the energy behind it, and then Stilgar and all that, like just like this violent passion for their new Messiah. It is just like, you almost felt like, let's go. And it's like, no, this is going to lead to some bad shit. It's a very powerful movie.
It is. But there's very few movies that can compare to it where I got that really awe-inspiring sense in the theater. Like Braveheart was one of those for me. I saw that in the theater, and like there's just so many iconic scenes in that. But comparing it to the scene you're just talking about was like where William Wallace is riding up and down the line in that first battle, and he said, "What will you do without freedom? Will you fight?" And then they're all like, "No, we'll run, we'll live." And then, fight and you may die. Like that whole speech was just awesome. And seeing that when he gets everybody, like just basically changes everyone's mind with this one speech, all the naysayers are just like flipped on, and then they're charging into battle. Like that type of scene is exactly what you were just saying. Like I wanted to get up out of my seat and just start going right through the screen, It's great. But hey,
hopefully we get the last one soon.
We should probably wrap it here. I could sit here and wax intellectual about movies all day, and we're already at 2 hours here, man. It has been awesome talking to you. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Really stoked for the new video you've got coming out. I will definitely be checking that out. And here's to wishing the best for the game. Hopefully we'll be talking about it 6 months from now in a very positive light with a lot of players.
I think so, man. I think I genuinely think good times ahead. I think the CEO Terrence is very self-aware. He's in tap with what's going on. So
yeah, agreed.
Thanks for having me, man. It was really good. Really good chatting with you. And keep doing this, man. It's good. It's good for the community. It's good for the game. And I think also, speaking of like the developers, it's really good information for them. Because I know Terrence watches these with like all the players, big or small in stature when it comes to like Twitch metrics or YouTube metrics. So man, you're doing a good service for them as well. Like, believe it or not, like I bet they appreciate it. So thanks for doing what you do, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I will keep it going. Try to do at least one of these every quarter at this point. I'm coaching soccer right now, and that's eating up a lot of my time. But one of these days, I'll get on a regular schedule. So thanks again, guys. Spuddy. Pleasure, man.
Thank you.
It's weird. I was going to say your face. I couldn't keep it. Oh, shit.